Well, Logan, unlike last week, no era-defining astrological events are happening this week, and things are going to be a little bit less busy astrologically than the past month or so, but we've still got some juicy transits to talk about here, full of opportunities and challenges for us to sink our fangs into. First, though, now that we've stepped through the portal of Imbolc and that Leo full moon yesterday, I want to take the opportunity to inform y'all about some huge astrological happenings coming up later this month because it's going to be wild. Now, don't get scared, don't overthink it, but I just want you all to be aware and prepared because what kind of astrologer would I be otherwise, right? So, you may want to know that the next lunation, which is the new moon in Aquarius on February 17th, which is also Lunar New Year, is a solar eclipse, folks. So we're building up now towards eclipse season, which, as you may know, tends to be a tumultuous and transformative time. Since eclipses always come in pairs, that one is going to be followed 2 weeks later by a lunar eclipse, aka the full moon in Pisces on March 3rd. And eclipse season is going to last all the way until the following new moon in Pisces on March 18th. So, especially when it comes to rituals, ceremonies, magic, and manifestation, you may want to cool your jets a bit, because here at the Focused on Infinity Hour, we do not recommend doing such activities during eclipse times. Thank you very much. Another huge upcoming transit is Saturn moving into Aries on February 13th, following after Neptune, which, as you may remember, made this transition last week. And the real headliner event here is the long-anticipated conjunction between Saturn and Neptune on February 20th. I am so fascinated by this dance that's been happening between Saturn, the planet of reality, and Neptune, the planet of dreams, because Saturn adds a really concrete wake-up call to that Neptunian vision and can help us to actually make it real in our three-dimensional world. So we'll talk more about that in a couple weeks. Finally, I must let you know that our buddy Mercury will enter a retrograde on February 25th, which is going to last all the way until March 20th. So my point is, get your ducks in a row as soon as possible, folks. If you're putting off a bunch of important stuff that you think you're going to deal with between mid-February and mid-March or so, this is not well starred and will probably bite you in the ass. So take heed. Remember, though, that these transits happen often and they're not something to freak out about, but we can be prepared and just make our difficult lives a little bit easier in the process by being aware of them. All right, let's turn to this week's forecast. Chiron and Uranus are key players this week, being activated by Mercury and Venus in twinning transits. And the way I see this week is that Chiron is reminding us of our sensitive spots and offering us some opportunities for healing. Then Uranus is going to come through and stress test that healing with Mercury and Venus, seeing if those bandages will hold. So this week could be a little disruptive at times. And our various relationships will be put through the ringer in some ways, but this week also offers a lot of potential for healing and connection, and it underscores the revolutionary themes of this here Aquarius season. Okay, today, Monday, February 2nd, we kicked off the week with speedy Mercury at 23 degrees of Aquarius, forming a sextile to slowboat Chiron at 23 degrees of Aries. Mercury is the mental planet, and here it's stimulating the wounded healer. So we may be feeling a bit more sensitive around our core wounding today and really this whole week. But with this soft sextile aspect, Mercury gives a nice opportunity for healing the ways in which we perceive, think, and communicate. This is a great day for those tender conversations or journaling sessions. Maybe you're healing wounds around your relationship to intelligence and education, or maybe you're more focused on compassionate connection in your platonic relationships. Either way, if you're not very aware of your core wounds, if you tend to tune them out or run from them, this transit might just force you to look at them, which is bound to be a bit uncomfortable. But if you've been doing the introspection, reflection, self-awareness, and personal growth around these wounds, this transit can bring a divine spark or message that propels you along that healing path. So listen to yourself, be curious about your wounds, and see what wisdom comes to you under this transit. With the compassion of Chiron, this is also a reminder to speak out on behalf of those who are most oppressed, wounded, and traumatized by the overculture. Mercury, use your voice. Probably right around when you're seeing this, actually, this evening, the moon is moving into service-oriented analytical Virgo. And that's all for Monday. So let's take a look at tomorrow, Tuesday the 3rd. There's one piece of news here, which is that Uranus is stationing direct at 27 degrees and 27 minutes of Taurus. Pretty cool. This means that it's ending its 5-month retrograde and slowly starting to move forward to the sign of Gemini, which it'll enter on April 25th and then be there for the next 6.5 years, which is a big deal. As you may have heard me say before, though, the retrogrades of these slow outer planets aren't big deals. They aren't really something to focus on compared to the quick personal planets like Mercury. But what's significant about Tuesday evening here is that Uranus is calling attention to itself in this moment. It's stopping in its tracks, it's turning around and moving in the other direction in the sky. So that means that we're getting a big hit of Uranian energy here. That could be disruptive and shocking or magical and transformative, depending on the circumstances and what we choose to do with them. Remember, though, that Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and this planet is always calling us toward liberation, toward greater authenticity and truth, toward radical progress for humanity. So Tuesday could be a good day for some revolutionary action. I don't know. Moving on here. Wednesday, February 4th, has Venus now moving to 23 degrees of Aquarius and repeating that sextile to Chiron and Aries that we saw Mercury make a couple days before. With this transit, we'll now feel sensitive around everything relational. This could be a good day to work on healing your interpersonal relationships, especially intimate or romantic ones. But you might also be healing your relationship to money, abundance, and resources. Maybe you're healing your relationship to creativity or being creative as a method of healing, or both. Why not both? Maybe you're focused on caring for and healing your relationship to your physical body. Maybe you're reflecting on your values and your sense of self-worth. Maybe you're taking compassionate action to bring more justice and equality into the world. All great Venus, Chiron type of possibilities. Then on Thursday the 5th, early that morning, the moon will move into balanced, beautiful Libra. And then as Mercury moves to 27.5 degrees of Aquarius, it'll now form a square to Uranus, creeping along at the same degrees of Taurus there. The square is an aspect of friction, so Uranus will be mentally challenging us here on Thursday, and this may come in the form of shocking news, sudden realizations, unexpected flashes of insight, messages or omens from the universe. But this transit can transform how you perceive, think, and communicate. Uranus can really help us to break up or change those stubborn mental patterns, especially in these fixed signs of Taurus and Aquarius. Now, if your nervous system is easily activated like mine kind of is, Thursday is the type of day where you want to have a game plan for how to regulate when needed. But as Uranus confronts us with this discomfort, this dysregulation even, a bigger truth is trying to break through into our awareness, so I hope we're paying attention. Then on Friday, February 6th, Mercury is going to move along from Aquarius into Pisces. Now, Mercury moves faster than Venus does because it's closer to the sun. So it's peeling away from Venus here. Venus is trailing after and kind of echoing these Mercury transits as we go along. But now with Mercury in Pisces, our minds will be more oriented towards emotion and intuition. Our thinking and communication can become more empathetic and more creative. We might be having more dreams, perceiving beyond ordinary reality, getting downloads and visions and messages, experiencing more spiritual connection. Mercury in Pisces, though, is not really a time of logical thinking or organized communication. Things are going to feel messy and chaotic, especially with Mercury lingering and retrograding in this sign in coming weeks. So my fellow Virgos and I are going to need to chill out and try to go with the flow here. I must ask, though, do just try come Friday to be reasonably concise in your communication, because as much as I love y'all, Pisces Mercury folks can really go on at length. So please just try to keep that in mind for all our sakes, okay? Thank you. Then on Saturday, February 7th, the moon moves into sultry, spooky, secretive Scorpio. That's all for that day. And then finally, on Sunday the 8th, Venus will arrive at 27.5 degrees of Aquarius and repeat that square to Uranus in Taurus. This time, the shocks might show up in your relationships, in your bank account, in your artistic projects. You might be really confronted around your values, challenging their authenticity and your willingness to act on them and embody them and live them. We might receive sudden news related to anything from the economy to questions of justice to the rights of women, queer, and trans folks. Expect the unexpected is always the motto with whole Uranus. We can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but remember, even though these transits are coming in a challenging form, the goal of these shakeups is always liberation, truth, and authenticity in these relational areas that Venus represents. Uranus wants to deprogram and decondition. So thank you, Uranus, for shaking us awake so that we can make the most of this last half of revolutionary Aquarius season. All right, that's it for this week's astrological weather report. I'm Alice Pope. Logan, back to you.